All right, all right, all right. Yowza, yowza. What it is, what it is. Ball pump, ball pump, ball pump, ball pump. I have to remember to go to the store and buy a ball pump so I can inflate some soccer balls. Game one tonight, people. Come on. Allan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning. Remember at the very beginning of this study, the introduction from the English Standard Version? It stated that, and I quote, Romans is the most systematically reasoned of Paul's letters. Yes, I know this. And I use an outline with drilled down bullet points to illustrate that point. Well, we've come to the conclusion of this letter, chapters 12 through 16. They're considered the conclusion of the letter. This is where Paul begins describing how the gospel should affect one's everyday life. That's from like the English Standard Version. But you would think, right? The English Standard Version is saying that. It's setting that up. It's setting that stage up. But we just go, oh. Because pastors are taught in seminary. I mean, I don't know this for a fact because I've never been to seminary, but I've been to enough churches where I've listened to enough pastors to hear that someone had to tell them that they had to do this one, maybe 2-verse theology, 1 to 2 verse, what's the word? Exposition? No, I'm getting the word wrong. Someone had to teach them or tell them or suggest to them that they had to, that they were supposed to teach the Bible like 1 verse at a time, 1 to 2 verse, based teaching, which is completely, I don't believe that because you don't have context, which is why we here at Chameleon Church, we're sticklers for context because without context, like Lenny says, it's then a pretense if it's out of context. And that's how I believe we've gotten into a lot of the problems that we've gotten into. And we say that a lot around here too. There is context. Otherwise, there's pretext or there's confusion, and you're not going to get what God is trying to tell you if you're out of context. So, so we don't go for this 1 verse thing at all. We have to do context. So, if knowing that the English Standard Version is flat out telling you, look, Paul, yes, expository. Thank you. Paul has spent 11 chapters setting it all up. And now he's going to tell us how to apply it. And like I've said for, I don't know, what week are we on? 17? Well, let me see. We are on week 17. So for at least 15, okay, I'll be a little bit kinder. For at least 14 weeks, I've been explaining how this letter is absolutely incriminating to Christianity because everything Paul is telling us to do, we have not done. Everything he's trying to impart, we have ignored. But then again, like I explained, if the Gentiles took over the club, kicked the Jew out of his own club, and then we read that we have a time limit that we're only going to be able, right? We're only going to have it for so long. I'm going to change the narrative. Replacement theology and say, well, no, that's not possible. God did change. God's gifts are not irrevocable. He's revoked Israel's position. He ignore completely chapter 11 of Romans because God's not doing that anymore. It's about us, the Gentiles, even though Paul explicitly explains the relationship. He explicitly explains Israel. I'm going to repeat this because this is this should be mind-blowing to a lot of you or to a lot of us. Israel has been put in a stupor to some extent regarding salvation so that Gentiles can get saved, so that Gentiles can provoke Israel to salvation. Gentiles, this has nothing to do with you. It always has been and always will be about Israel. Abraham, we're going to put your people into Egyptian slavery for 400 years while the sin of the Amorites matures. And then when that sin matures, then I'm going to release you to go and take care of this. The land of Canaan, all the Nephilim. See, we don't like that. We don't like the idea of God doing or using us for another means. And doesn't Paul say in Romans, how can the clay tell the potter how to shape them, or how to, what to make you out of, and how for you to be used? How are you to judge God? Paul literally says that. Why? Because, okay, this is not Friday. Tomorrow's Friday. And, we are in Romans 12. Verses 1 through 8. We're going to get through as much of this as possible. Probably won't get to a lot, but we are in Romans 12. This is called a living sacrifice in the English Standard Version. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, now that I've explained what's going on and what's actually literally happening, I appeal to you by the mercies of God that you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Cross-reference Psalm 50. Verses 13 through 14. Present yourselves as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world or to this age, to this aeon, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing, right, by your being tested, you may discern what is the will of God. Well, we just lost 80% of you. What is good, not only the will of God, but what is good and acceptable and perfect. In other words, what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God? But you need discernment. Can't have discernment if you're not doing any of the stuff we're talking about. And that pretty much sums up the mainstream Romanized Western Church. Complete Jewish Bible puts it this way. I exhort you, therefore, brothers, in view of God's mercies, which we just explained in the last 10 chapters, to offer yourselves as a sacrifice, living and set apart for God. This will please Him. It is the logical temple worship for you. Oh, I love that. In other words, do not let yourselves be conformed to the standards of the Olam Hazeh, the end of the age, the age. Instead, keep letting yourselves be transformed. See, I love that. It's constant. Keep letting yourselves be transformed by the renewing of your minds, so that you will know what God wants and will agree that what He wants is good. Sorry, got to finish that one. All right. Verse 2, Complete Jewish Bible. In other words, do not let yourselves be conformed to the standards of the Olam Hazeh. I don't know why I'm saying that wrong. Instead, keep letting yourselves be transformed by the renewing of your minds. Why? So that you will know what God wants and will agree that what He wants is good, satisfying, and able to succeed. Absolutely fantabulous.
The views and opinions expressed during our broadcasts are solely those of the broadcast producers, hosts, and/or guests, etc., and are not necessarily the views or opinions of the Travelog Network, its sponsors, or affiliates.